Hey, welcome. My name is Jonathan Schechter. I'm a breathwork facilitator, integration specialist, and host and producer of the Vital Point podcast. And welcome to this new series. I'm not really sure, to be honest, if this is going to end up being a part of the Vital Point podcast or something that is a standalone. I don't think it's going to be a different show, but I also don't want to sort of like throw off the audience of the existing podcast with this this format, which is going to be a little bit different. These are going to be my solo episodes. I think right now I'm calling it my integration journal, and I'm going to explain a little bit of that, like a little bit why I'm calling it that. So today is January 1st, 2024. And if you're like me, everything on your social media that's being sort of pushed to you or recommended is like productivity and New Year's resolutions and New Year, New You, and all the things. And maybe there's some stuff that's a little bit more caring and gentle, like, hey, you don't have to start new goals or pretend like you're going to be a new you to have value or feel like you have everything figured out. All these things, right? There's a myriad of different messages out there. And one of them that stuck out to me because I wanted something to sort of focus my intention into this video and into this integration journal series. And I want this to be different than the Vital Point, where that's a little bit more curated. It's a little bit more long form. These videos might be really short. Some of them might be really long. And so I don't want to go through everything that I want to share with you today. I literally just want this to be the introduction and inaugural episode of the integration journal. Okay. But as I was going through TikTok earlier, I came across something from the Daily Stoic, and specifically from productivity expert Ali Abdaal. And the question that he was asked was, what would you tell to somebody if they said that they wanted to be more productive this year in 2024? And he said, well, it's really just 3 steps, right? The first step is to figure out what your goals are. I would call that getting clarity on what you want, right? The second step is to convert those goals into actionable steps. And then the third step is to schedule those steps, like actually put them on the calendar. To me, what I see there when I hear that is giving myself accountability, building discipline, and having structure around getting from where I am to where I want to be. And I think in a lot of ways, this is aligned with what I teach in my coaching and the sort of the ethos of the Vital Point podcast, which is it doesn't matter what method you're practicing as much as you're practicing something. You're taking action. You know, you don't have to eat the whole elephant today, but you got to take a bite. You got to start somewhere. Otherwise, you're not going to make any progress. And so in a lot of ways in my life right now, in the past, let's go back a step here. In the past, I would have started this year having done a bunch of prep work to figure out that first step, to figure out what my goals are, what I'm happy with, what I'm not happy with, and how I'm going to get to my goals. Or I would be spending a lot of today doing that, right? Like carving some time out to intentionally sit down and think about the year and do a vision board, or I like the mind movies. But, you know, literally sitting down and trying to figure it out, getting that clarity. And I'm not saying that I haven't done any of that, but I'm just going to be honest and say that I don't feel really clear right now. I have some general ideas and I definitely know the direction that I'm moving in. I'm not completely clueless about what I want to accomplish and how I'm getting there. But I also had this moment maybe about a month ago where I sat down and I carved my sort of life into 4 different quadrants: physical health, mental health, my business, and hobbies. And as I sat down and like actually went through each of those areas, I had this moment of clarity, realization, epiphany, whatever you want to call it, that honestly was really uncomfortable. And that was that I'm not really happy in any of those areas right now. And I just want to preface that by saying, like, I could sit down and find gratitude in all 4 of those areas. I am incredibly grateful for what I have in my life, what I've accomplished so far, the things that I'm working on, the things that I plan on working on in this year. But there's also these big gaps to me that I am still working on and that I want to get better in. And one of them is the podcast. And so one of the things that came up was, why don't I do a daily video where I can talk and get better at podcasting, get better at making content, continue to build the audience. And the other thing that came up was that maybe this is in my head. I'm just going to say that before I say this, that maybe this is all in my head, but I feel like based on the work that I'm doing and the content that I'm putting out around that work as a breathwork facilitator, as a coach, as a podcast host, that I've sort of painted myself into a corner, if you will, with having to assert myself as an expert. Or I guess in my mind, when I come on here and I share, I kind of have this idea that I have to at least seem like I have my shit put together and that I have things figured out. And if you look at most coaches and, experts or people that are trying to sell you something on social media, they're not talking about the things that they're working on as much as they're trying to say, hey, you should buy from me because I am the expert. I do have things figured out. And I really didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something else where I can just be honest and say, you know what? There are these things that I have a lot of training and a lot of experience in. And there are some areas that I am very qualified to teach others. And I probably do know more about than the average person, right? Meditation, breath work, nervous system regulation, starting to get that way around somatic experiencing. Certainly done a lot of inner work and psychedelic integration work with myself and continue to do so. So maybe I know more about that than the average person, but I'm still figuring stuff out. And especially in the last few months, I've hit this area of my life where I've started to see how much I feel like I still have to do. I've found myself in these places where I feel really ungrounded. I feel like, wow, there's a lot to figure out here. There's things that I am working through and working on. And I want to be able to share that as well, not just be like, hey, I'm Jonathan, I'm the expert in what I'm talking about. And so this is a part of that, is just this honest dialogue with you about what I'm working on, what I'm integrating. I also think that this is going to help me in my goal of growing my podcast and being a better content creator and podcaster, because out of, I think we're at 88 episodes of The Vital Point as I'm recording this. Out of those 88, like less than 20% are solo episodes. And I listen to all of my episodes, whether they're with guests or not. And there's times where I am extremely critical of the way that I speak, of using filler words. And I want to continue to get better and progress as a communicator, as a coach, as a host, right? See, I just did it right there, but it's okay. So I remember when I was doing the podcast like last year, and I had this moment. I had recorded a solo podcast, and after I recorded it, and I kept taking these pauses and stuff that I knew I was going to edit out and whatnot. And I was like, wow, why is this so hard? And then I realized, well, okay, 80% of the time, or maybe it was even like 90% then, I'm talking with somebody else. I'm having a conversation. It's a different skill than talking to you by myself, of not having somebody to bounce things off of, right? So I know that if I start making more videos where I'm talking with you and I don't have somebody else to fill the time or the air, then I'm going to get better. Right? So this is part of my 3-step process. I'm figuring out what my goals are. I'm still getting clarity on that. And that's one of the things that I want to share with you during this series. And then how I'm going to convert that into actionable steps, because the reality is that I do know what to do. I have a lot of experience as a project manager. It's something that I help people with as a coach. And so it's like physician, heal thyself. And then in a big way, I think that this is honestly something that's going to help me be accountable to build that discipline to show up here continuously and regularly. Is like, I'm putting myself out there. I'm saying like, hey, this is what I'm doing this year. I don't have everything figured out, but I'm going to be figuring it out. I am figuring it out. And I want to share that in real time. I want to build in real time with you and share that journey with you, not only for you to feel inspired, to feel like, oh yeah, like I'm going through that too, and maybe share my experience and the things that I'm learning along the way. But selfishly, this is also really, really for me. And if other people get value out of it, wonderful. And if not, this is still helping me show up, improve, continue to progress towards the things that I'm working on accomplishing. Right? Because I am still figuring it out. But I don't want to wait until I have 100% clarity. I don't want to wait until I have all the goals written down and everything figured out and all the steps and all the things before I start. That's always been something that I'm learning, that I'm having to remind myself about, and where I feel like I've had the most success is starting before I'm ready. Because the thing about the things that we talk about on the show, you know, as far as personal development, as far as, you know, stepping into the life that you really truly want, or away from the things that you really don't want, is that there's going to be resistance. And it's so much easier to not progress or stay where you are than it is to move through those. And if I've always believed that if you wait until you're ready to start, you're going to die not starting. It's not about perfection. It's about taking the step forward. It's about the journey. It's about what you learn as you're taking those steps, right? The growth that you go through. And so, I mean, I've been thinking about starting this series now for like a few weeks, and it's been really easy for me to put it off until January 1st. And even today I got up and I'm like, oh, well, should I do this? I don't know if this is going to go in the podcast. Is this going to go onto YouTube? Is this going to go into my social media, you know, content? Like, I got to figure that all out. Am I going to do this every day? What am I going to talk about? Fuck that. I'm just going to do it. Like, I don't need to have everything figured out before I start to move. Right. And so, yeah, here's where we're at. And I appreciate you being here. By the way, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, hit notifications so that you get the new episodes that are going to be coming out. Because let's face it, most of my YouTube right now is the Vital Point podcast. And so this is going to be, again, I'm figuring it out. It might be a standalone series. It might be part of it. My intuition at this moment tells me that this is going to be a part of the podcast. And it's going to help me break away from doing the seasons of the podcast, which is kind of what I've been doing. But who knows, that could all change. So before I sign off for the day, I just want to share one sort of meta reason of why I'm doing this, like why this is important for me to start and to actually follow through, even without all the clarity that I might want to have before I actually start something. So one of the things that I've been integrating in my medicine work, in my inner work, and just in general in my life is I've been divorced now for 5 years. And the divorce, even though it was really about a year in the making of sort of waking up to the fact that, like, hey, this is irreconcilable and you need to go. The actual divorce itself happened really fast. I left the home that I shared with my ex-wife really fast. And I was in the middle of, you know, full-time job and going to college full-time. And even though I didn't realize it very clearly, I was definitely in a survival mode, trying to just kind of weather that storm. And because of that, you know, I think there are things that I didn't have a chance to grieve. And some of those things are just coming up now. And as those things are coming up, as those things like to grieve are coming up, what's also where the place that I found myself in often is feeling ungrounded. I've often reflected that if I passed myself on the street 5 years ago, I wouldn't recognize myself. I weigh a lot less, even though my weight has continued to fluctuate a little bit. I'm still probably about 20 to 30 pounds less than I weighed when I got divorced. I have a different career. I was working for a Fortune 500 corporate government contractor doing finance and data analytics 5 years ago. I have all different friends, not to mention a different partner. The things that I spend my time doing are completely different. The clothes I wear are different. The food I'm interested in eating is different. I don't drink. So in a way, I feel totally different and like a different person. And I'm still trying to figure out who I am, because it doesn't seem like that old person really fits anymore. And at the same time, I've had these experiences, a lot of them in expanded states of consciousness, like breath work or different plant medicines, that have given me much more access to, let's call it a higher self. Let's call it a spark of the divine. Something that transcends the 3-dimension, right? And also, as I've gone through my own, self-healing journey, whatever you want to call it, I've learned a lot about manifestation, and that one of the keys of manifestation is that putting myself vibrationally in the energy of what I want. Like that it's not so much of me saying, oh, this is what I want, and it's so far away from where I am now, as saying like, I already am that person, or I already have that thing, and feeling the emotion, feeling the vibration of having accomplished that, right? Like I already am that person. So just put myself in there and start behaving as such. And so here I am. This is literally a part of that. Is this to me, sort of the hidden meaning of this video and this series that I'm embarking on, is that I want to just start showing up in the way that I envision in my head, and not hold myself back, not get caught up in the smaller self that really doesn't fit the life that I'm living anymore. It doesn't have the same resources that I do. It doesn't have the same practices as I do now. It doesn't have the same feelings, thoughts, or motivations as I have now. And so this is me embodying this new energy. And I appreciate you being here for it. I hope that you subscribe and click the bell so that you get notifications, because this is what 2024 is about for me in a big way, is like me figuring it out in the 3D as I embody as much as I can this higher self that I know I already am. And we're going to figure it out together. And I appreciate you being here. I can't wait to continue to share with you. I got a whole bunch of stuff keyed up that might not have necessarily fit with the Vital Point, but we're expanding, we're growing, and I'm so here for it. And thanks for being here too. So until next time, I'm going to sign off in the same way that I do with the Vital Point, because this is a different part of that Vital Point, which is no matter the method you use, the important thing is to practice. That's the Vital Point. So until next time.